Hey guys, and welcome to a very different video from what I've uploaded on this channel. This is a Game of Thrones rant, and I know that doesn't really fit well with what I do on this channel, but I really wanted to talk about my thoughts on the show because I've just finished watching it for the first time ever. I know the show finished in like 2019 or something, but that was at a time where I really couldn't watch the show. So, now that I have a greater understanding of shows, and I want to like express my thoughts on it, I would like to do that. So, sit back, buckle up. I have some Hades running in the background because I really don't know what else to put. So, it's gonna be there. If you want to watch it, you can. Or if you just want to hear me talk, then yeah, that's here as well. So, Game of Thrones, for those who don't know, which I really don't know who that would be, because unless you're on the younger side of things, you've probably heard of Game of Thrones, and most likely you've probably watched it. Game of Thrones is a show about, well, it takes place in like a medieval sort of environment, and it's a drama. There's a lot of fighting, it's a lot of arguing, and like tensions are high, and like, yeah, if you've ever seen a drama, you know what I'm talking about. Like, dramas are dramas. Like, people make dumb mistakes, and as a viewer, it gets really infuriating to watch, which is why I'm making this video, because there were a lot of things, especially in the last season, that really pissed me off, and I wanted to break it down and tell you what exactly I found bad about the show, but mostly what's good about the show, because I really think this is a great show, and I would recommend this to almost everyone, whether you like action, whether you like drama, romance, even if you're down on it. No, not if you're down. Romance, if you're into that. It has a good cast of themes. Like, it even has comedy. It's a great show. And without further ado, let's break it down. Now I binge watched this show from season 1 to season 8 head on. I think I finished this in about maybe 3 weeks, maybe even less. No, 4 weeks. No, 3 weeks. Yeah, it took me 3 weeks to finish this show, which is an extremely short amount of time. When I get addicted to something, it's extremely hard for me to put it down. And I got addicted to this show, and the saddest part is when trying, like, I'm gonna try and break down this show, right? But I have my the episodes pulled up here because I genuinely forgot what season episodes fell into. Like, I was just binging. Like, I know most people, even me, like, when a show comes out, like the first season, and like it ends on like a cliffhanger or something, you like remember that, right? So that when season 2 comes, you're there, right? Like, you're fully immersed. You maybe rewatched the last episode. Like, when the season cut off and when the season's continuing again, right? I don't remember any of that. I was just watching it. So I have this pulled up so I can truly break down every single episode and tell you what I thought was amazing about, honestly, the first 7 seasons. I know a lot of people say that it really gets bad after like season 4 or something. I thought it didn't do that. I thought it was still good by season 7, but season 8, we'll get to it when we get to it. So let's break it down. Let's talk about season 1. So season 1, this is the season with the least amount of drama, I would like to say. Looking back on it, like, I got the episodes pulled up, right? It was a really good season. So we have our cast of characters. I'll try and pull them up in this video, but we have my favorite characters here. Ned Stark, he's the head of House Stark, which in this show there are 4 houses that are prevalent. I realize that it's gonna be kind of impossible for me to like break everything down and explain everything, so you're like gonna have to come in here with some context clues, okay? There are four main houses, which are like the primary powers in Game of Thrones: House Stark, House Targaryen, House Baratheon, and House Lannister. Ned Stark is the leader of House Stark, and he is Warden of the North. Warden of the North. I don't know if it's actually Warden of the North, now I'm thinking about it, but he was a very important figure in the North. A lot of people looked up to him, so that's one thing. So the first episode is about I don't want to break down the episodes, but the first season is basically about the White Walkers and the Lannisters and going to King's Landing, and everyone kind of getting started, all the main characters getting started on their journeys. The one thing I really enjoyed about this show that a lot of shows do, but I don't think they do as well as Game of Thrones did, is taking separate characters with their own individual stories, the whole individual plot lines, right, being almost nowhere related to each other, and then near the end of like season 6 and season 7 and season 8, bring them all together and somehow make it so that they're all intertwined, like their stories are intertwined. Game of Thrones did it really well, and yeah, we'll start. So we'll talk about my favorite characters. I'm going to go top 3, maybe top 5. Number 1 is Jon Snow. If you know who Jon Snow is, you know who Jon Snow is. He is just that guy. He has the most drip. He is just the hottest. And he's just a great character, you know. Definitely the most morally uprooted, and definitely the most, how do you say it? Closest to, not relate to, but like feel for almost, because he's a good character, he's a good guy. And yeah, no, Jon Snow. Number 2 probably goes to Tyrion Lannister. Tyrion Lannister is a dwarf. He is the second son of House Lannister, and he is not only the comedic part of the show, but he is also the intuitive and clever part of this show. And that's why I really like Tyrion, because he makes up for like what people assume of him in the show, of him being a dwarf and not like maybe being smart or being capable of anything. And he rises through the ranks and like does amazing things and amazing feats. And just like Jon Snow, he's a good person, which is why I really like him. And number 3, at first went to Daenerys Targaryen, but after watching season 7 and especially season 8, Daenerys kind of fell off, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe Jaime. I actually really liked Jaime's character. The first season you won't see it much, but as the seasons go on, Jaime becomes someone I really can respect. Number 4, maybe Arya. Arya was also a high contender of one of my favorite characters, but she just became really annoying really quick, and I didn't really care. So maybe Arya number 4. I'm trying to just like look through these episodes, try and see if I can get a glimpse of any of the characters that I did enjoy. Yeah, Bronn. Bronn probably goes number 5. Bronn is very similar to Tyrion. They interact multiple times in the story. They're comedic. They're what do you say? Yeah, no, they're comedic. They're good people to some extent, and I really enjoy their characters. But anyway, that's all character stuff. I just stated my characters. If you know the show, you probably know these characters, but if you don't know the show, what I just said probably sounds like nonsense. So let's start with season 1 rather. So season 1, the Starks, or rather, in episode 1, you have the king of Westeros, which Westeros is the region in which a good chunk of these stories take place. There are a lot more places, such as Dorne and like where the Dothraki were and all that, but Westeros is kind of like the main area that the story focuses on, mainly because of the Iron Throne. Now, the Iron Throne is where the king sits, and it's when people in the show used to refer power or like kingship or like anything that's like truly meaningful, they mean the Iron Throne. They say like, I want the Iron Throne, or I'm going to claim the Iron Throne, because that is the symbol of being a king, or like being the king of Westeros, right? King or queen. So basically the king arrives in Winterfell, which is where the Starks are, and he asks Ned Stark to be Hand of King, which basically means his advisor, essentially, his like primary advisor. I really don't want to keep. I don't want to keep this video too long, so just to like simply say it, Ned agrees, and the Starks, all of them, go to King's Landing, which is where the king stays usually. Now, the king at this current time is Robert Baratheon, which is of the Baratheon family, which I've said before is part of the 4 big families in this world, I guess. And Robert Baratheon, the king, is married to Cersei Lannister, which I know a lot of people say she is the worst female character in the show. And I can agree with this to some extent, but I honestly think she's number 2. Because the number 1 for me is Sansa Stark, which I'll get into that later. But, okay, going back to the beginning of House Stark, right? So all of them are going to King's Landing with Robert Baratheon and his family, the Lannisters. And they're just going there, right? To, serve as hand of the king and, like, help him out, right? But, there is some dispute between these 2 families because... Alright, let's break it down the family list, alright? Because I feel like it's going to be possible without breaking it down. We have, in House Stark, we have Ned Stark as the father, Catelyn Stark as the mother, Jon Snow, which is Ned Stark's bastard, also. Maybe... Okay. Spoiler alert, obviously, right? This is the whole show. So, there's going to be a lot of spoilers. If you haven't seen the show or finished it, don't watch this, because... there's going to be a lot of spoilers, and I would hate for anyone to get spoiled because this is a great show, and I really don't want anyone to miss out on the experience. So, you have Jon Snow, which is... his name is Jon Snow because he's a bastard of Ned Stark. But, if you watch the show, he's not a bastard of Ned Stark. He is Rhaegar Targaryen's son, and Lyanna Stark's son... Lyanna Stark is Ned Stark's sister, so he's basically he's the cousin, okay? He's a cousin of House Stark, but he's a Targaryen, which again I've said before, one of the big families in this world, and I'll tell you why later. So, now I'm thinking about it. If you've seen the show, I said major spoilers, and if you've seen the show. You don't need me to break all this down. So,
I'm weaker.
I'm just not even gonna talk about it.
Stupider. I'm an idiot.
We do all that.
I'm an idiot.
Whatever. Let's talk about the important stuff. So, let's start season 1, right? I thought season 1 was amazing. It did a lot of things right. It introduced the characters pretty well. It kind of showed who they are, what they stand for, and what their moral is, right? There's a lot to talk about in the first season, and I don't really know how to talk about it without making an hours-long video, like, or even past that, like 5 hours, because there's so much to break down. But to give you a synopsis, right? Everyone goes on their journeys, right? Jon Snow went to Castle Black. The Starks went to King's Landing. You have Daenerys across the sea with the Dothraki becoming the queen. It's a lot happening. But season 1, right? An introduction of all the characters and what, like a good introduction, right? Season 2, right? This is where things start to ramp up in terms of the drama. Robert Baratheon, he's dead. All right, he died in season 1. But Joffrey, which is Robert Baratheon's heir, but he's also Cersei Lannister's and Jaime Lannister's son. And Jaime and Cersei are like together, even though they're like siblings. Like, it's a lot. Regardless, the show goes on, right? A lot of things happen. You meet a lot of characters in here. Daenerys continues her. She's on like the opposite side of the world right now, right? Not opposite side of the world, but she's like across a big sea, right? And because she's across a big sea, she has to gather an army to take back Westeros. And yeah, she's doing that right now. And Jon is in the Night's Watch, which is like a secret, not secret, but like army in the north who's like fighting. I don't really know what I'm trying to say. All I know is this show is great, right? There are a lot of good fights that happen. There are a lot of great things that happen in this show. Season 1, 2, 3, 4, like, I mean, these are all amazing shows. I've said that I don't want there to be this is spoiler heavy, so I don't want to explain something that a lot of people probably already know. So I guess we'll talk about what the show did right. I'll tell you what the show did right. It did right by making the characters seem fun, seem interesting, and like connect with their stories, right? They interjoined all the characters well. They did a lot of things right. I mean, yeah. But let's get into the juice. Why did Game of Thrones, specifically season 8, fail? And this is an objective. HBO itself has said that these last 6 episodes, 6 by the way, every other season besides season 7 had 10 episodes. Why they made it 6 and also make Winter last 1 season? Because if you've seen the show, you know Winter has been coming for the past like 6 seasons, right? Like, it came in season 7, and then it really came in season 8 when the White Walker showed up at the wall, right? Winter has been coming for so long, so why break Winter down into 6 episodes? Like, they said this was gonna be the longest winter ever. It's ironic, because this is the shortest season ever. So, like, what were they doing? Like, but the writers decided to make it only 8 seasons, which really confuses me, because I'm not that big on Game of Thrones. I've never read the books, but from my knowledge, the books never finished, did they? But they're still being written, if I'm correct. Why are we continuing the show if the writer doesn't even know what the show is gonna look like? Like, the story is like the biggest aspect. Why are we creating that aspect on our own? Like, the show has been successful because not fully because of the writer, but you know, he's a crucial element in making this story good. And to try and write it on their own just backfired big time, because this is a terribly rated season. Let's talk about season 8, because that's where all the juice is. You know, there can be a lot to talk about, like how Daenerys and like Jon, I honestly love the relationship. And there is quite a lot to talk about in the armies and the wars and like how characters develop. Like, I specifically love Jaime's development as a character, because I think that he went from being like someone who only cared about Cersei to by the end still really caring about Cersei, but by the end he was aware of what Cersei was. Actually, he knew what Cersei always was. But instead of like season 1 and 2 where he's just ignoring it, he's addressed it by the end. He's come to terms with it, and he realizes that even though Cersei is a bad person, he still loves her, and that, while probably not being a good thing, is still character development, I think, in and of itself, because we've seen time and time again in this show, love has made people do some absurdly weird decisions and some weird stuff. Because if you know Daenerys and Jon's relationship, you know they're aunt and nephew. Like, I'm sorry, but like once you learn that, like, how do you go back? Like, I know the Targaryens have been like dating their family members since like forever, but like that's still a bit weird. Anywho, season 8. Contrary to most opinions, contrary to most opinions, I actually don't think the first 3 episodes of the season are that bad. They're not amazing. No, they have made better, but it wasn't unbearable. These last 3 episodes, though, is where I'm going to focus my aim truly down, because that's where most of my information is, because I watched it recently, literally yesterday, and this is where I'm going to get a little mad. So the last 3, actually no, the last 4, we'll go with the last 4. Episode 3 is called The Long Night. Do you know why it's called The Long Night? Because it is the entire White Walker invasion in an hour and 32 minutes. Bro! An hour and 32 minutes. I've waited 7 seasons. Dang near, hold on, let me do some math real quick. 60, 67, 68, 69. I've waited 70 episodes for this. 70 episodes for winter to come, and the White Walkers and the Night King and them all to breach the wall, and for everyone south of the wall, and even in Dorne and like the Dothraki, for them all to come together and fight. You know what happens? Cersei's army never showed up. The episode ends in one episode. The fight lasts 1 episode, and of every single person, Arya Stark kills the Night King. Why is Arya Stark killing the Night King? She hasn't even met a White Walker before. What? Like, why isn't Jon killing the Night King? I feel like that would be good. Jon's been fighting the White Walkers for the entire show. He's been at the wall, north of the wall, several times. Arya has never been north of the wall. She's never killed a White Walker. She's a fighter, sure, but like that doesn't... Like, no, save the Night King for Jon. I've heard from other people, and I thought this was a good suggestion, leave Arya Stark for Cersei. Cersei dies in a cave, which that in and of itself wasn't that bad for me. But there was never any... The Starks and Lannisters never had a final debut, you know? Like, Arya, out of everyone, hates Cersei. Like, she watched her dad die. She watched Joffrey be the Night King. She watched so many things this family did to ruin her life, and she doesn't even get to see one of them die. Not a single one she got to see die. That really confused me. So there was that, right? Then you had Daenerys, which... Alright, let's talk about Daenerys. Daenerys Targaryen started off as one of my favorite characters. I loved her being in this foreign land, being with the Dothraki, and her becoming like this queen of dragons and breaker of chains and like all these things, racking these titles up. But then by the time she got to Meereen, right, like, I really didn't like her character that much. She was unforgiving, but in a bad way. Like, I understand being, like, what do you say, strict, or like being upholding of your, you know, rules, because you're a queen. You have to do that. But she was doing it in a way where there was no need for it. Like, there were a lot of things she could have just not done. Like, you don't stop violence with violence. Like, that's not, you breed a cycle. And I feel like Daenerys is the perfect example in this show of living long enough to see yourself become the villain. Because at first, I was rooting for her. I think most people were probably rooting for her at the beginning of the show. But As time went on, she kept saying she wanted to break this wheel, she wanted to change everything, and by the end, she became the thing she wanted to break. She killed hundreds of innocents in King's Landing with Drogon. She conceded to a rage, she conceded, and she became obsessed with the Iron Throne. I get that's what she's been after for her whole life, but she was willing to give it all. She was willing to be the thing she wanted to break in order to achieve it. She let her greed get the better of herself. And that is why. And the craziest part is, I feel like this is the writer's fault. Because pre-season 8, sure, she had a couple of rough spots, but she wasn't that bad. Like, I would have been fine to see her sit on the Iron Throne. But by the time season 8 came, I didn't want her on the throne. I was glad Jon killed her, because there was just no saving her at that point, right? Anywho, Daenerys. I really liked her, but she became a character that didn't. Yeah, I'll be honest, she didn't get the justice she deserved. All right. She should have been on the one. She should have been the one sitting on the anthem. And I hated how the end of the show was like, they tried. I don't know. I've heard so before that they tried really hard, like the writers, to like break fan theories, that they just ended up breaking the show. I don't know what the fan theories are, but I can tell you that the ending of the show was not a good one. Okay. Jon goes into the north, like the north, like with the wildlings and stuff, right? Arya is like going west of Westeros, which, why? Never once in the show did she ever display a sense of like wanting to explore. She's always just wanted to kill, like cross off the names off the list. Like that's who she's been the whole time, like a killer. And you know, she went through the faceless journey, right? And she wants to amount all that to going west of Westeros, like, and then not expand upon that. Like, if you are gonna do it, like, there should be something there, right? Maybe, I don't remember this fully, but I know that there used to be a land where the dragons used to be, right? I don't know if that was west of West. I don't know if that's maybe west of Westeros, but I don't think it is. So if that isn't the case, right? Why is she going there? Alright? Sansa became Lady of Winterfell and King of the North, Queen of the North, right? I hate Sansa. By the end, I don't know how Jon found it in him to forgive her, to still love her as family. Because, bro, the amount of things she did that pissed me off, man. Like, Jon trusted her with such a crucial secret. Don't tell anyone I'm Aegon Targaryen, right? And she, because she said this to Tyrion, she got Varys killed, she got Daenerys killed, she messed up everything telling Jon was Aegon Targaryen. Jon could have lived out his life with Daenerys by her side, with Queen King on the throne. But no. Sansa just had to run her mouth. And it's crazy to me because after everything she's been through with the Boltons, with her family, I thought she, of all people, would understand what words do and how important it is to keep your promises. And she, of all people, breaks her promise of just being better, of breaking who families trust. For what? Because she didn't like Daenerys? Okay, sure. Daenerys is a foreigner, and, you know, Jon was likely the better candidate for king. But he didn't want it, okay? Daenerys wanted it. If she was a bad king before that, you know, whatever, right? Or queen, then, you know what? Jon can do his thing, right? But I feel like Daenerys' journey of becoming a bad person, looking through these episodes, really started because of what she said. If Sansa never said that Jon was Aegon Targaryen, then I don't think Daenerys would have turned out the way she did. And I don't think the show would have ended as poorly as it did. This was the factor that I think changed what this show was Sansa telling everyone that Jon was Aegon Targaryen. And she didn't have to tell everyone. She just had to tell enough people. She told Tyrion, Tyrion told Varys, and Tyrion told Daenerys, and that spiraled out of control because Daenerys told Jon, don't tell your family, Sansa's gonna betray you, and she did. I hate Sansa, man. I really wish she died because she deserves it out of everyone. She does not deserve to be Queen of the North. She is the worst person. Make Jon king in the North. And in the end, the North became an independent kingdom. Why? Why? Your brother is king. Why not just join it? You will be more powerful together. Why not be part of this? It's because Sansa is greedy. Cersei's a bad character, for sure. She did a lot of horrible things, but you can at least kind of justify her actions a little because she loved her kids and she was willing to go to any risk to make their life happy and, do it. And eventually, she got broken by it because Joffrey died by poisoning, Myrcella died by poisoning, and Tommen, hopped out that window real quick, right? So, and then she had another kid in her belly, and then, she was willing to do anything to make that baby happy. So at least with her, you could justify some of her actions, right? Sansa, you can't justify anything, man. You can't justify a single thing she did. Like a single poor decision that she made. Because she did it out of greed. In my opinion, from what I saw, Sansa did all this because she was greedy. She was jealous and she was greedy. She wanted to be Lady of Winterfell, right? She wanted Daenerys to die. She wanted Jon to be, quote unquote, free. Sansa messed this whole story up that I think the show would have been so much better off if Sansa just stopped all the nonsense. I'm ranting. In conclusion, breaking down the answer of why Game of Thrones failed, it's because of Sansa. And there can be a lot of disputes on that. There can be a lot of claims on maybe that not being the case. And I'm willing to indulge in those discussions because honestly, I'm upset. I'm upset this show ended the way it did and it deserves justice. I hope that when the books are all done, I'm going to go buy them and I'm going to read them. And I'm going to enjoy a complete story because what we got in especially these last 4 episodes, it just destroyed everything that was being built in this entire show. This last season as a whole just subverted everyone's expectations, right? I didn't go into the show thinking much of it. I heard a lot of things from it, but I wasn't thinking I was going to come in here and look at another One Piece, But as time went on, I started to like the show more and more. And by season 7, I had grown attached to these characters. I really wanted to see how it would end, how characters would interact. And they finished it off in such a poor way that I cannot justify this show anymore. Or the ending. I know the show's a bit on, not the older side, but not as relevant anymore as it used to be a couple of years back, so I know a lot of people probably don't care to see this because they've already got their thoughts sorted out, but I don't. I need closure on what the show. Someone explain to me. Someone please tell me what the writers were thinking in their heads making this season, because I don't get it. I'm stuck. I'm in a place where I don't understand why they chose the decisions they did. And it's infuriating. I know this video was a bit different than other ones I've made, and I don't know if people care to see me rant like this. I like using YouTube as a place for me to talk sometimes. So I just want to talk about the show. I have other shows. If people do like this, then I have a lot of other shows I would like to talk about, such as One Piece, and I'm watching Euphoria now. I heard A House of Dragon was pretty good, which is the prequel to Game of Thrones, so I will check that out. But I'm upset, and I think I'm gonna go contemplate what this show tried to be, and I'm just go.